let's talk about the Republican primary, because the Republican primary is getting more and more and more people joining the fray. We had Tim Scott, the up-and-coming Republican senator, throw his hat in the ring. We had, of course, Ron DeSantis throw his hat in the ring. Donald Trump has already been on the campaign trail for a bit. Nikki Haley's been on the campaign trail for a bit. And we knew Mike Pence was going to announce eventually. We all thought he was going to announce, and he finally, after going to like this biker event where he looked very cool on his motorcycle, he has now announced he's running for president with a campaign ad, as well as Chris Christie. Chris Christie, you probably you probably know him as being the former governor of New Jersey. He was the former governor of New Jersey who got into a scandal because he closed the beaches and then vacationed on the beach. He also ran for president in 2016 and got into a lot of scuffles on the campaign trail, verbally that is, and most famously had a scuffle with Marco Rubio. I really love that moment. So I actually have it pulled up so we can watch it again. Chris Christie plowing Marco Rubio, just as a reminder, because Marco was set on his dialogue tree, and once Chris Christie noticed, he called it out. He's a good debater, man. That's one thing you got to give to Chris Christie. I'm not a Chris Christie fan. I'm not going to vote for him. Of all the Republicans that have announced, I think he's the least bad, but that just shows how much the bar has generally been lowered. But he's a good debater, and this is just one example of that. And Marco Rubio was left stunned.
You have not been involved in a consequential decision where you had to be held accountable. You just simply haven't. I want the people at home to think about this. That's what Washington, D.C. does. The drive-by shot at the beginning.
Oh, no. No, it was working so well.
Beginning with incorrect and incomplete information, and then...
no. There it is. There it is. There's Twitter. Christie was interesting back in the day just from a spectator stance. Never been a fan of his politics, but he was fun to watch. He is fun to watch. And in fact, all the analysis I've seen about Chris Christie from the sidelines here, even from the people who like just don't want to give him any credit whatsoever, is always, well, at least he's going to add to the entertainment factor. I saw on Mehdi Hassan's show, they were talking about Chris Christie. They were talking about him throwing his hat in the ring. And one of the main things they kept saying is, Chris Christie is here to add to the entertainment factor. There was one person on the show trying to give him some credit, saying he could do some damage, but they were saying it was like the entertainment factor. And look, I think most likely he's not going to have that much of an impact. There's no chance of Chris Christie or Mike Pence, if we're being for real. Mike Pence can't even win his own demographic. The evangelicals over Trump. How's he going to win? I don't think Chris Christie has a chance of winning. I do think he has a chance of doing some damage on the campaign trail and doing some damage during the debates. And we know that a more contentious Republican primary, whoever comes out of it, is going to look weaker, whether it's Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump. Come on, I would really like to finish this clip. It's really funny. You know what? We can watch it somewhere else. We can watch it here. I can just Google it on Chris Christie Marco Rubio. What if my recommended is garbage?
With just 2 days.
Where is it? Here it is.
I like Marco Rubio, and he's a smart person and a good guy, but he simply does not have the experience to be president of the United States and make these decisions. We've watched it happen, everybody.
By the way, Marco Rubio is a senator from Florida, for those of you who don't know. He was running for president also in 2016, and many people saw him as a strong contender for the nomination at the time. But this like permanently set that, this moment right here, permanently set him off track from being president, at least for that election.
For the last 7 years, the people of New Hampshire are smart. Do not make the same mistake again.
I think the experience...
It wasn't the only factor that set him off, let me be clear, but it was one of the factors, for sure.
The people of New Hampshire are smart. Do not make the same mistake again.
I think the experience is not just what you did, but how it worked out. Under Chris Christie's governorship of New Jersey, they've been downgraded 9 times in their credit rating. This country already has a debt problem. We don't need to add to it by electing someone who has experience at running up and destroying the credit rating of his state. But I would add this. Let's dispel with this fiction that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. He is trying to change this country. He wants America to become more like the rest of the world. We don't want to be like the rest of the world. We want to be the United States of America. And when I'm elected president, this will become, once again, the single greatest nation in the history of the world, not the disaster Barack Obama has imposed upon us.
By the way, none of that was a response to experience. It was just like, you sucked as governor, not, okay, well, here's my examples of my experience. And then he just started complaining about Obama. How is Chrissy going to respond?
You see, everybody, I want the people at home to think about this. That's what Washington, D.C. does. The drive-by shot at the beginning with incorrect and incomplete information, and then the memorized 25-second speech that is exactly what his advisors gave him. See, Marco, the thing is this. When you're president of the United States, when you're a governor of a state, the memorized 30-second speech where you talk about how great America is at the end of it doesn't solve one problem for one person. They expect you to plow the snow. They expect you to get the schools open.
Look at Donald Trump here. Even he, dude, I don't see that look. That's like a damn. You can see it on his face. He's like, damn, man. He doesn't even know where this came from. Oh my God, it's vicious.
One problem for one person. They expect you to plow the snow. They expect you to get the schools open. And when the worst natural disaster in your state's history hits you, they expect you to rebuild their state, which is what I've done. None of that stuff happens on the floor of the United States Senate. It's a fine job. I'm glad you ran for it, but it does not prepare you for president of the United States.
Chris, your state got hit by a massive snowstorm 2 weeks ago. You didn't even want to go back. They had to shame you into going back.
No.
And then you stayed there for 36 hours, and then he left and came back to campaign.
See,
those are the facts. Here's the bottom line. This notion that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing is just not true.
There it is.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
The memorized 25-second speech.
Well, that's the reason why this campaign.
You know what the shame is, Marco? The shame is that you would actually criticize somebody for showing up to work, plowing the streets, getting the trains run back on time, when you've never been responsible for that in your entire life.
Okay. He didn't want to go back.
And the fact is, I went back, it got done, and here's
you didn't want to go back.
I went back. Oh, so wait a second. Is now one of the skills you get as a United States Senator ESP also?
Chris, everybody, you said you weren't going to go back.
The fact is, Marco,
he told everyone he wasn't going to go back, and they had to shame him into going back.
Marco, because
and then when he decided to go back, he criticized the young lady, saying, "What am I supposed to do? Go back with a mop?
By the way,
clean up the flood."
It gets very unruly when he gets off his talking.
Thank you, Governor.
Man, he tore Marco Rubio in half there. He tore him in half. Now, this time around, Chris Christie seems to be aiming his ire at Trump, specifically at Trump, and really almost only at Trump. Not really only at Trump, but primarily at Trump. Obviously, he's the front runner. I want to see this type of anger and not really even anger, but I want to see these types of haymakers get thrown in Trump's direction. I'm really excited for that. Now, we're going to talk about Chris Christie in a second, but first, we need to get Mike Pence out of the way. And it sounds weird to say we got to get Mike Pence out of the way. I've always viewed Mike Pence almost like a Christian cartoon character. I used to have a cutout of him in the background of my stream. It's actually still at my place back in Maryland, back in the United States. I'm sure he will make an appearance again eventually on stream. But in comparison to what we're probably going to see from Chris Christie on the campaign trail, what Mike Pence, his pitch is a lot more boring. This video feels like it was taken straight out like 1990s Republicana, like we need to against the Clintons, where we love America because America is good. Very similar actually to what Marco Rubio was kind of pitching when we were talking about earlier. So let's watch it. Let's get it out of the way and get back to Chris Christie, because that's actually, in my opinion, more exciting. But he is polling better by like a margin of 3 points in the low 1 digits than Chris Christie. So we should talk about him.
The land of opportunity, beacon of democracy, the shining city on the hill, land of the free, home of the brave. The United States of America. As a son of the heartland, grandson of an Irish immigrant, those aren't just words. My family has lived the American dream. I had the great honor to serve in Congress, as governor, and as your vice president. And I'll always be proud of the progress we made together for a stronger, more prosperous America. But today, our country's in a lot of trouble. President Joe Biden and the radical left have weakened America at home and abroad.
Wait, I'm sorry. Let's look at all these things that represents Biden weakening America. He looks angry in a speech.
President Joe Biden and the
Kamala's like, okay.
Radical left have weakened America.
A Black Lives Matter march.
At home and abroad.
Hey, okay, at least there you go. There's actually something there. There you go. There is the Air Force plane that had Afghans dropping off the side of it during the evacuation. There you go. That at least is more on messaging.
The American dream is being crushed.
Just the ice cream. Sorry, I love looking at all the clips they use during these campaign ads. It's an obsession of mine. I'll let it play out. I'm sorry.
Under runaway inflation, wages are dropping. Recession is looming. Our southern border is under siege, and the enemies of freedom are on the march around the world. And worse still, timeless.
Hey, at least he put Putin up there for the enemies of freedom. At least we have. At least that means we don't have one more person on the debate stage saying, I don't know, man. Maybe the Ukrainians were asking for it. Okay, let's continue.
American values are under assault as never before. We're better than this. We can turn this country around, but different times call for different leadership. Today, our party and our country need a leader that'll appeal, as Lincoln said, to the better angels of our nature. I have long believed, to whom much is given, much will be required. My family and I have been blessed beyond measure with opportunities to serve this nation, and it'd be easy to stay on the sidelines. But that's not how I was raised. That's why today,
I've made the difficult decision. I mean, it's really a burden on my shoulders to ask you to give me the most power a human being can ask for. To make me the most powerful man on the planet. I ask you to give me this burden. I'm not saying, there are burdens that come with the presidency, but I always read it. I never took the idea, and multiple people do this message when they run for president. I could have easily decided to just stay home, but instead I've decided to ask you to give me the power to end the world with nuclear weapons and give me the burden. Again, not saying that it doesn't come with any burdens. When you think about it, it doesn't hit as good,
Before God and my family, I'm announcing I'm running for President of the United States. We can bring this country back. We can defend our nation and secure our border. We can revive our economy and put our nation back.
I saw John Bolton in the background. That immediately made me realize, if Pence was in office, John Bolton would probably have a position. I think John Bolton, it would be, or somebody John Bolton-esque. It'd probably be a return to that type of, I don't know if it would be, not like maybe Bush era neoconservatism, but it would be a kind of vague semblance of that. There's no way you can get back to post 9/11 American interventionism right now. It's impossible. You could never convince the American public like they did after 9/11. Impossible. At least for the time being, unless something drastically changes in the immediate.
Path to a balanced budget, defend our liberties, and give America a new beginning for life. President Reagan described us as a shining city on the hill. And above all, he called on Americans to renew optimism and believe in themselves again, to believe in each other. Every time our nation has produced leadership that has called upon this country to do hard things, the American people have always risen to the challenge. And we will again. We just need government as good as our people to do it. I believe in the American people, and I have faith. God is not done with America yet, and together we can bring this country back, and the best days for the greatest nation on earth are yet to come. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
And yeah, he's running for president. I don't know. This feels like this is not the ad for our time. I mean, it's not as gross as some of the other ads are, but I don't know, man. It feels like this is something taken straight out of 30 years ago, man. I don't think anybody would have batted an eye if this was running on the airwaves during the Clinton administration, man. Oh my God. Well, that's it. I have nothing else to say about this. The boring ad. Now let's talk about the fun thing. Let's talk about Chris Christie. Because like I said, I was excited to see Chris Christie go on the attack against Trump on the campaign trail. And he has gone on the attack against Donald Trump on the campaign trail. And the barrier to get on the debate stage for the Republicans is not high. You only need to get 45,000 independent donations. that means there's not a polling requirement even. I think actually, no, I think the polling requirement was like, what was it? Like I think it was like 1 or 3% on more than like 3 national polls. I forget if it was 1% or 3%, but something along those lines. So the first debate is not that difficult to get into. I could imagine a scenario where Chris Christie wiggles his way onto the debate stage. I don't know if that's for sure, but I can imagine that scenario depending on how much he can get in the public sphere. I know he's already gotten a CNN town hall, which is more than Marianne Williamson is getting. He's getting a CNN town hall, so he's trying to get himself on the debate stage. But he's going aggressive against Donald Trump. Here are the types of things he's going after Donald Trump for. Here's one example. And this is a substantive critique. This is the thing about the Republican primary right now. All the critiques against Trump from the Republican end seem to be not substantive. It's like one of the critiques recently I've seen was when Donald Trump was the owner of like Miss Beauty, what is it? The American Beauty pageant. What is it called? Miss Universe, the Miss Universe beauty pageant. He allowed a trans woman to compete. Oh my God. Like, that's not a tabletop issue. Who cares? Not only was this something like 40 years ago that nobody cares about, it's not like anybody got hurt. The person didn't even win. So it's not like they like cheated anybody out of anything, even if we're looking at this from a Republican mindset. So it's not that substantive. And a lot of the Republicans are scared to go after Trump anyway. And the PACs that are going after Trump, and it's all PACs that are going after Trump because none of these candidates want to attack him directly because they're scared they wouldn't be able to get his endorsement if they piss him off too much. And they don't want his followers to hate them because they're going to need their support if they're going to go into the general and win. So they're having the PACs going after them instead, not even the candidates directly. And the attacks from the PACs are not substantive. The few attacks that are going against him. So from Chris Christie, we could get somebody that will go after Donald Trump directly, and the attacks will not be, so Trump, what was your trans beauty pageant like, Mr. Trump, Orange Man? It'll be, I want to talk to you about the amount of money Jared Kushner and all these people could have incentivized the Saudis to give you. What about these financial ties? Here's something that he brought up, and this is a substantive critique that if you're somebody who is rambling and ranting about Hunter Biden, you don't like Hunter Biden getting in a position of charisma, I understand, but if you're somebody who cares about that, and that's one of the things that's motivating you to go vote against Biden, he's bringing up something that should be of concern here. He criticizes Donald Trump's record. He left America with the biggest deficit. Wait, no, wrong one. Sorry, there's so many. Here it is. Chris Christie on Trump. The grift from his family is breathtaking. It's breathtaking. Jared Kushner and Ivanka Kushner walk out of the White House and months later get $2 billion from the Saudis. $2 billion from the Saudis. Do you think it was because he's some kind of investing genius? That's a substantive critique. When I saw this on Twitter, I actually was taken back. I was like, oh, that's a real thing to criticize Trump for. That nepotism, which has been one of the main pitches against Biden from Republicans, something that they should, supposedly, if they're being consistent, care about. That's a substantive critique. That surprised me. I was like, damn, maybe that Chris Christie performance in 2016 was not a rarity, number one. And number two, now he's combining it with substantive critique. Maybe it was such a surprise to me because there's been so little substantive critique in the Republican Party. But also, there's like so much material to work with. Not only has Trump gone in and out of scandal with the lawsuits and the horrible statements and the unconstitutional policies he's pushed and calling, Georgia Secretary of State, trying to get him to steal the election, all the type of stuff that Trump's been involved in, both before he was president, when he was president, and after he was president. There's so much material to work with. And so, since nobody else in the Republican Party wants to go after Trump, and the few that do want to make crappy, not really substantive critiques, this guy gets the pick of the litter. He can go after anything. He's basically sitting in front of a buffet, which I know Chris Christie is excited about. Okay, that was cruel. I'm sorry. That was nice. And I, of course, also love buffets. One second, just listen to the tone of how he talks about this. This is super interesting.
The grift from this family is breathtaking. It's breathtaking. Jared Kushner and Ivanka Kushner walk out of the White House and months later get $2 billion from the Saudis. $2 billion from the Saudis. You think it's because he's some kind of investing genius? Or do you think it's because he was sitting next to the President of the United States for 4 years doing favors for the Saudis? That's your money. That's your money he stole. And gave it to his family. You know what that makes us? A banana republic. That's what it makes us.
Damn. A banana republic. See, I wouldn't even have said that. He's going harder than I would have gone. I thought that, what? Oh, wait, by the way, this reminds me of one of my favorite Trump moments. Trump prints weapons. I want to see where he has like the graph of all the weapons. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Oh, no, I don't want to watch the democracy now. I want to see the clip. I want to see the clip. Here it is. Is this... do we have the actual clip this is from?
Censuses
Do they play it? Yeah, here we go.
purchases from the United States.
No, I want. Look at this. He's just like, look at all the things they're buying. They're buying so many weapons. Oh my God, look at all the bombs. Look how happy he is on the left there. He's so excited. Look at all this 12.5 billion in finalized weapon sales to Saudi Arabia. You got jets, you got rockets, you got bombs, you got anything that can ruin a child in Yemen's life instantly. He was so excited, man, so excited. Here's another one, and this is a critique. And if you're a Republican, these are substantive critiques that should matter to you. Chris Christie criticizes Donald Trump's record. He left with the biggest deficit of any president in American history. He said he was going to eliminate the national debt in 8 years, and he added $3 trillion to the national debt in 4 years.
The reason this is going to be different this time, sir, is because at least one of us is going to call him on the fact that 8 years ago he stood on the stage in New Hampshire and said he was going to balance the budget in 4 years. And he left with the biggest deficit of any president in American history. He said he was going to eliminate the national debt in 8 years. He added $3 trillion to the national debt in 4 years. The reason this is going to be...
These are things that if you're a Republican, that should make you consider that for a moment. That's something that if you genuinely care about, if you're policy-oriented, not saying a lot of Republicans are necessarily 100% policy-oriented or that's their main focus, but if you are even slightly policy-oriented, this is something that should concern you. And this is, again, good, substantive critique. It's not garbage critique. And hey, here's another substantive critique. Chris Christie slams Trump for claiming he would settle the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. Let me tell you how he would. He'd give Ukraine to Russia. He'd call Zelensky and say, hey, guess what? Time to raise the Russian flag up on the pole. We're out of here. Oh, come on. It was loading just then. There we go.
And now I heard him say, if we made him president again, he would settle the Ukraine war in 24 hours. Did you hear that one? That's a beauty. That's really in a career of complete falsehoods. That makes the top 5. But let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say Donald Trump could settle it in 24 hours. Let me tell you how he would. He'd give Ukraine to Russia. And he said it. He said it on television. He said it at CNN, and he said, look, Russia's going to wind up with Ukraine anyway, so what's the difference? That's how he'd settle it in 24 hours. He'd call Zelensky and say, hey, guess what? Time to raise the Russian flag up on the pole. We're out of here. And now...
He's not wrong. He's 100% right. Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He is not an expert in these types of things. He doesn't know how international relations work. He doesn't have any grounding theory besides I am strong and I bomb and I kill and I'm strong. That's all he can think about. Unless, of course, he's talking about another countries like freedoms in Ukraine. We're talking about that. Then never mind. Then he's weak. And if he's talking about Russia and they're doing something to Ukraine, oh, then he's weak. Well, if we're talking about Taiwan and removing ambassadors at the request, removing ambassadors, not like technically ambassadors, but what was essentially ambassadors from Taiwan because she wants to. Well, then he's weak. Then when it actually comes to standing up for something internationally that's good, he's always weak. When it comes to standing up for something that's fucking horrible, like selling out the people of Western Sahara, then he's usually bad. He's usually bad on it. Fuck, man. It's so weird hearing like a Republican make substantive critiques towards Trump because it's so rare. And these are all like actually good critiques. These are critiques that will travel into the general election. A lot of the critiques during this primary will be just in the primary. Joe Biden is not going to say, Donald Trump, you allowed a trans woman to compete in the Miss Universe pageant. How dare you disrespect women's sports? He's not going to say that. Can they go after him on Ukraine? Absolutely. Not only because what he's saying right here is true, but also a history of statements from Trump on the war in Ukraine. For example, him saying that we should paint a Chinese flag on an F-15 and fly it into Russia, bomb it, get it out of there, blame it on the Chinese and start a war between them and the Russians. And kind of, I guess, like this is like a psychotic, like a Nixon scenario of trying to bring back a Sino-Soviet split. Insane stuff. Some people say it's a joke. Didn't sound like a joke when I listened to it. Go listen to the audio yourself and you decide if it's a joke. Trump has a bad record on this. Remember, he got impeached for the Zelensky phone call where he was trying to strong-arm Zelensky out of information on Hunter Biden and his father, Joe Biden, his political opponents, in order for him to deliver the lethal aid, which would be essential in helping to beat back the Russians from Kiev. So he's not only been bad on this issue ever since the war started, he was bad on this issue 2019. He was bad on this issue ever since on the campaign trail he asked Vladimir Putin to hack into his political opponents. He's been bad on this issue since day one. Since day one of seriously joining politics, and only has gotten worse since 2019. Man, it's so weird to see substantive critiques directed towards Trump from a Republican. But hey, that's Chris Christie for you, I guess. Again, he's not my guy. I wouldn't vote for him. He's the best of the Republicans, but again, extremely low standard. But if he can go in there and just give Trump a few slaps on the face, even if it just wounds him a little bit going into the general, then it'll be mission accomplished. And it seems like Chris Christie has decided that he's tied the bandana around his forehead. He's gotten in the plane and he said banzai, and he's gonna kamikaze himself into Donald Trump. And I'm here for it. Absolutely. My goodness. Remember when John Kasich was someone palatable in 2016? Nostalgia. Oh my God. Ted Cruz and John Kasich were the last two options for the Republicans. And then it was literally just Ted Cruz. And the establishment Republicans, by the way, hate Ted Cruz. They've always hated Ted Cruz. They don't like him on a personal level, and they also don't like him politically. But because of how bad Donald Trump was and how they knew this would have very detrimental long-term effects on the party, even despite all of that, they still went with Ted Cruz, trying to get him through, even though they don't like him. What they wanted was Jeb or Marco Rubio. That's what they wanted. They wanted somebody like that. My goodness. I know that Mehdi Hassan did a little segment. I do want to do one last thing. I do need to do this because if I don't address this, I feel like I'll be too much of a simp for him. And I'm not trying to simp for this guy. I just really hope he kamikazes himself into Donald Trump. But this has not always been the tone of Chris Christie. Chris Christie, after the Republican nomination process in 2016, came out and endorsed Donald Trump. And he supported Donald Trump on the campaign trail, releasing multiple statements supporting his nomination. So don't think that like Chris Christie has always been like some warrior in the shadows fighting against Donald Trump from within the Republican Party to preserve the party of Lincoln. When it was convenient, he supported him. Maybe since then, Trump has been so bad and Trump delivered on so few of his promises that has changed his mind. Maybe it's only political opportunism. Maybe it's a combination of factors. Maybe he just sees that, like, look, nobody else is filling this hole in the primary right now. I'm going to fill the hole. Could be anything. But I do want to bring this up that this isn't the Chris Christie of 2017, 2018. This is a different Chris Christie that we're dealing with now, and he hasn't always been consistent on this.
Donald Trump made us smaller by dividing us even further and pitting one group against another.
The line of supporting Donald Trump starts behind me. I was the first elected official in America to endorse him in 2016, prepped him for those debates, prepped him in 2020 for the debates.
It ain't funny anymore.
Dude, do you think there's a, oh my God. If Chris, I forgot that Chris Christie prepped Donald Trump for the debates. Do you think that, like, Chris Christie, like, this was like a Darth Vader scenario? He didn't know exactly what I mean, Trump was always good at these public showings, but his debate skills did get better as it went on. Do you think Chris Christie, like, oh my gosh, was he this is like Jedi debate master? Oh my goodness. He doesn't know the monster that he unleashed.
It's not amusing.
Well, now it makes sense why he's pretty good at what he does, pretty good at debate. It makes sense now, doesn't it?
Anymore. It's not entertaining.
Apparently, yeah. Trump saw him on the debate stage debating, and Trump left the debate stage thinking, wow, that guy's a good enough debater. Now that he's dropped out, I'm going to get him to coach me on debate. Man, I think that's also a testament to how good he is at this. The PR, that is. Chris Christie.
Anymore. It is the last throes of a bitter, angry man who wants power back for himself, not for you.
I'm here tonight not only as the governor of New Jersey, but also as Donald Trump's friend for the last 14 years.
Like Voldemort. He is he who shall not be named.
Not only a strong leader, but by a caring, genuine, and decent person.
A lonely, self-consumed, self-serving mirror hog.
Oof.
Is not a leader.
How do you grade Trump as president?
Oh, listen, overall, I give the president an A.
This last statement right here is the worst one, because if you're of the idea that Chris Christie has changed after seeing how Trump was in office, why was he saying during Trump's administration that he gave him an A? I would have to see exactly when this clip was. Maybe it was 2017 and something happened in 2018 that changed his mind, but oof, bad moment for Chris Christie. Either way, I wish his kamikaze flight good luck, okay? Happy flying.